The year is 1945. The deafening roar of World War II has finally fallen silent. A collective sigh of relief ripples across the globe, but the peace is fragile, short-lived. A new conflict, a different kind of war, is already casting its long, cold shadow over a world weary of fighting. This was a war not of bombs and bullets, but of whispers and ideologies. A war fought in the shadows, on the airwaves, and in the minds of millions. This was the Cold War. Imagine a world cleaved into, on one side, the United States, championing democracy and capitalism. On the other, the Soviet Union, hoisting the red banner of communism. These two titans, former allies, now stood as ideological adversaries. Each possessed the power to annihilate the other, and the entire planet, with the push of a button. The atom, once a symbol of scientific progress, was now a harbinger of potential apocalypse. This terrifying stalemate, known as mutually assured destruction, or MAD, held the world hostage for nearly half a century. Fear became a daily companion, a silent hum beneath the surface of everyday life. In the heart of Europe, a physical manifestation of this division appeared. Winston Churchill famously called it an iron curtain, a barrier of concrete, barbed wire, an ideology that descended across the continent. To the west, the glittering lights of Paris, London, and Rome. To the east, the stark, controlled reality of Warsaw, Prague, and East Berlin, Germany, and its capital Berlin, became the epicenter of this divide, a city literally split in two by a wall that became the most potent symbol of the Cold War's bitter division. Families were torn apart, and freedom became a desperate dream for those on the wrong side of the concrete. But this ideological battle wasn't confined to Europe. It bled into every corner of the globe, turning regional conflicts into proxy wars. In the rugged mountains of Korea and the dense jungles of Vietnam, soldiers fought and died not just for their nations, but for the competing visions of Washington and Moscow. These weren't just wars, they were battlegrounds of ideology. Each side poured in money, weapons, and propaganda, desperate to prove their system was superior. The human cost was immense, as entire nations became pawns in a global chess match between superpowers. Propaganda was the ammunition in this war of minds. It was everywhere. On the radio, broadcasts demonized the enemy, painting them as godless aggressors or greedy imperialists. In cinemas, films glorified one way of life while vilifying the other. Even school textbooks were rewritten to instill unwavering loyalty and deep-seated suspicion. Posters depicted heroic workers and soldiers on one side, and shadowy, sinister figures on the other. This constant barrage of messaging created a climate of paranoia and distrust. Spies and secret agents, figures like James Bond, captured the public imagination. But the reality of espionage was a deadly serious game of intelligence gathering, defections, and betrayal. Everyone was a potential spy, every neighbor a potential informant. The competition extended beyond the shadows and into the stars. The space race was the ultimate display of technological and ideological muscle. When the Soviets launched Sputnik in 1957, the first artificial satellite, it sent shockwaves through the West. The race was on. Every rocket launch, every successful orbit, and ultimately, every step on the moon was framed as a victory for capitalism or communism. Science itself became a battlefield. The Olympic Games, too, were transformed. The medal count was more than just a tally of athletic achievement. It was a scoreboard for the Cold War, a measure of national vitality and superiority. A gold medal wasn't just for the athletes, it was a win for their entire way of life. Yet, amidst this climate of fear and division, something remarkable began to stir. The very tension that threatened to tear the world apart also accelerated progress. Technological innovation exploded, not just in weaponry, but in computing, communication, and medicine, advances that would shape the modern world. Culture, too, found ways to cross the Iron Curtain. Rock and roll music, blue jeans, and Western films became symbols of freedom and rebellion for young people in the Eastern Bloc. They represented a world of choice and self-expression, a stark contrast to the conformity demanded by their governments. Voices of dissent grew louder. In Poland, the Solidarity movement challenged communist rule. In Czechoslovakia, the Prague Spring briefly blossomed with the promise of socialism with a human face. These movements were often brutally crushed, but they planted seeds of hope. They proved that the human spirit's desire for freedom could not be extinguished by walls or propaganda. The dream of a united, peaceful world persisted, nurtured by brave individuals who dared to speak out, to write, to resist. Then, on a chilly November evening in 1989, the unthinkable happened. The Berlin Wall, that grim symbol of division, came tumbling down. It wasn't knocked down by armies or bombs, but by the sheer will of ordinary people. Thousands of East and West Berliners swarmed the checkpoints, armed with hammers, chisels, and pure joy. They climbed the wall, danced on its top, and tore it apart piece by piece. It was a euphoric, world-changing moment, broadcast live across the globe. The fall of the Berlin Wall was the beginning of the end. One by one, the communist regimes of Eastern Europe collapsed, and in 1991, the Soviet Union itself dissolved. The Cold War was over. Looking back, the Cold War serves as a profound and cautionary tale. It teaches us about the terrifying dangers of ideological extremism and the destructive potential of fear. It shows how easily nations can be divided by power and paranoia, but it also reveals the incredible resilience of the human spirit. It demonstrates that even in the darkest of times, the yearning for freedom, connection, and understanding can prevail. The Cold War's end was not just a victory for one side over the other. It was a victory for the idea that dialogue is better than division, that trust can overcome suspicion, and that humanity's shared hopes are far more powerful than the ideologies that seek to tear us apart. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through a pivotal moment in history. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the turning points that have shaped our world. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.